How are we doing, diggers? Hope you're all well. Welcome to the shop. Welcome to the YouTube channel again. This is part 2 of the mega collection that we're sorting at the moment. I thought it'd be easy just to split it into two videos, really. So if you've seen the first video, or if not, go back and watch it. I went over, I got a phone call to see a big, large collection of around 3,000 records. And yeah, went over there, and it was a bit uncertain whether they wanted to sell, whether they wanted to continue. They wanted to sell it individually during COVID, but ran out of time, and many other factors came in. And they were a bit unsure whether they wanted to carry on the idea of doing that, to basically get a valuation, or sell it in one go. And it was a bit unclear, so I didn't give my full valuation, which can take, for a collection that size, a whole day, basically a whole day's work of going through, finding records, you know, putting them into piles, finding the true value of it. So I gave a very cursory amount and said it could be worth X amount. That was on the high side. Because I was hoping that we would find more in the loft space. So today we're going to the loft. We are in a heat wave at the moment. The last time I went in the loft, it was quite cool outside, and it was still about 45 degrees. At the moment, it's 32 degrees, 34 degrees. It's the hottest temperatures we've ever had in the UK. So in that loft, it's going to be quite torturous. But anyway, so I'm really hoping, I'm desperately hoping we find the value in the loft today. It was quite a tight fit, so I couldn't get into all the nooks and crannies to get to all the records, so I could only really look at a quarter. But from what I saw, I was hoping that there'd be some gems in the back bits I couldn't get to. And this is the problem again with rough valuations, and this is why I don't give them. If somebody phones up and says, I've got 100 records, this and this, how much do you think they're worth? Well, that's impossible. I can never give a valuation on that. Even if people phone up and say, I've got 4 Beatles records, I can't give a valuation on it. There's too many pressings, too many factors, condition. There's so many factors involved in it. And even in this case, when I'm seeing some of the records, how can you give a true valuation? In that loft, I could have a run of £2,000 records. I could find all the Nick Drakes, and then I could find Solid Blue Pink Floyd, and then I could find some loads of library music. Yeah, all of this would blow my original valuation out of the water. Or I could find absolutely nothing, and then I've put a figure on the table that I just cannot match because we don't find the value. It's really tricky in those cases, you know. So I don't like to do it, but I felt like I needed to in this to give them some idea of where we were headed. So who knows if it'll work out. We're going to go over to the collection anyway, and I'm going to stop rambling on. So if you want a bit of backstory, go back and watch the first video. We will head off now to the second part of the collection. Let's go. So here's what we were first faced with when we walked in, this huge Kallax unit, full to the brim of records. Now, there was no rhyme or reason to the order of this, not that we could ascertain anyway. It just looked pretty random, to be honest. Most of the stuff on that top lot was sort of pop, rock, soul-y, jazzy kind of bits and bobs. This first 30 or 40 was all Cliff Richard and the Shadows. So barely any value there, unfortunately, these days. And then a smattering of relatively good soundtracks, and most of the sort of Italian soundtrack stuff was in this lot. But again, just sort of flitted around. You'd pull something and it was not very big value, and then you pull something and you'd be like, oh, brilliant. And then you'd go for another 20 and there'd be nothing. So quite a random selection, really. The whole bottom of the Kallax was all classical. And I did have a quick scan through, and I couldn't see anything, to be honest, that really gave you much value. And then up the very creaky step ladder that led up into the loft. Now that loft space was so hard for me, 6'4" and quite a chunky fella, to squeeze through that gap. And at this point, I was like, how the hell are we going to get all these records down through that tiny little gap? But we managed it. Now, once I was in, I did record audio for this part, but it was just me panting and just sweating. So it's not audible. So I got rid. So that's why I'm doing a voiceover. Because it was just so hot up there. It must have been reaching about 45 degrees. It was ridiculous. Like being in a sauna, but you're not sat back relaxing. So, like I say, records were really nicely tightly packed in, apart from a few that had been moved out while they were beginning to sort them. Luckily, those bits in the piles, as you can see, no value whatsoever really there. And then we start just looking through. At this point, we're still looking through, just trying to ascertain whether there's enough value to even get us to the cursory offer that we put in. So yeah, we saw 2 great soundtracks there, and then we just hit a run of really low, not so good stuff. I mean, there was a Dual Diablo there, which was quite a cool soundtrack, and there's the odd bit, and then we hit upon a real big one there, the Omen soundtrack original, few Star Wars bits, which is quite cool. So as you can see, there isn't any rhyme or reason to the ordering of this at all. So it's quite difficult going through it, because you were like, oh right, we're back to the country, or we're back to the small value ones, or we're back to the rock and pop. Oh, we're into the soundtracks again. So yeah, it's quite a lot for you to do in your mind as you're going through. And up there, it was almost impossible to do notes. Therefore, I just sort of had to concentrate on, okay, so far I've seen 10 decent soundtracks, and I'm sort of tallying those up in my head as I go. And each row, I sort of tallied up a rough value. And then once we got them back to the shop, we were able to properly look through and ascertain actual value for them. There was only 1 box of records. And again, most of this was sort of 70s into the 80s, rock and pop stuff. Few very generic stuff. That was an Echo and the Bunnymen, which was strange to see in here because it didn't really match the rest, and that specials doesn't match the rest of the collection. So it's fascinating to know what drew his eye when he was collecting, because again, all of these are pretty much unplayed. XTC, maybe he was just a covers guy and just loved the artwork, as I'm sure we've all done, where we buy a record based on the artwork itself. And yeah, so yeah, I'm ordering bits and putting them in orders so I can come back to them and know where things are. This was the furthest part back in the loft, and you'd expect the furthest bit away to be the worst bit, but actually there was some great stuff in here as well. I mean, Cocoon soundtrack, I remember that film from my childhood, but I mean, the soundtrack, does anyone need it? Is it a big seller? Don't know. Now that is cool. We look at that in a bit. The value on that is quite high, you know, 30-40 quid, because again, not many soundtracks were being made at the time, and not many people were buying them because they're so niche. And now people go back and they think, oh, the nostalgia of a film that they enjoyed, and they might want the soundtrack. They might want the soundtrack. So yeah, there's plenty of unknowns in this lot. Plenty of factors that are like, are we just going to stick around on records forever? Now, I saw this one, and I've had 3 people in the shop ask me for this record. And people saying it's impossible to get hold of. It's a bit like the Lost Boys soundtrack, really hard to get hold of. Not as cool as the Lost Boys soundtrack, so again, incredibly niche. Not a huge amount of value in it. I think it goes for about 25-30 quid. But again, nice to have something that you won't see every day, and also, again, like I say, in immaculate condition. Here you can see that my camera work is is to be desired. It was so hard working up here. It's really, really, really taxing, really tricky. So then another wedge here, and we're seeing yet again loads and loads of low value stuff. Now, I know people were saying in the comments, yeah, but that one's worth £5, that one's worth £10, that one's worth X amount, but you've got to sell them for it to be worth that amount. Now that is an absolute banger. really cool disco, library music, jazz, funk, fusion, great stuff. Yes, so you've got to be able to sell them for that value. And you've got to make a business decision. Do you have loads of records clogging up the shop that are worth about £5 but are hard to sell? Or do you get rid cheaply and turn them over? That's on my grail list, that Bobby Humphrey, so that's going in my collection. And to be honest, I'd rather turn stuff over, have people getting a bargain, people are then happy, and it makes everyone happy, and we clear some stock. Otherwise, you just get record shops that are full of stuff at just a tiny fraction over the price, but people aren't buying it. I'd rather get rid quickly. And as you can see, stuff like James Last and stuff like that, that is going straight in the free box. I'm not going to be selling that. And yeah, then you get across, you know, a Georgie Moroder. I can't imagine that being worth more than a tenner, but then you hit into a load of stuff that is very low value again. So it is a tricky collection in that it's either high value, small amount of high value, small amount of medium value, and then just loads and loads of very low value stuff. But again, all excellent condition at least, so that has something for it. But it is a challenge one. It's a challenging one to value because there is a lot of work here to be done. We've got to factor that in when we're looking at collections like this. There was a nice bit of John Prine there. So there is, oh, and here we hit on a little run of goodness. Nancy and Lee there. That looks cool. That Bob James is just hip hop samples, left, right, and centre. It's fantastic. Marianne Faithfull's a lovely album. Bit of Graham Parsons. So there is good stuff amongst it for sure. Right. Let's get moving.
There is some decent bits in here.
Oh yeah. Some great soundtracks.
Yeah.
Really good soundtracks.
Yeah.
How many people does it take to fill a box with records?
3 apparently. Ooh, that's
Spot on.
There you go. Oh, we've just about.
Just pass me the tool.
Yeah, I'll pass it there, mate.
There's one more, literally, just there.
Yeah, go on then, mate. Whoosh.
Oh man.
Done. That is trip number 1 in the shop. Let's go back for trip number 2. Here we go, the last lot now. This is the stuff that we've deemed to be incredibly low / no value. Boxer Classical, James Last, Paint Your Wagon, loads of rubbish basically. So we'll get this out and then I don't know what we're going to do with this lot. Give it away, massive job lot, we'll think of something. Right, here we go, first sort out. So have a look, this is what we bought yesterday, as I've probably showed you a few times. All down there, Callux behind us. So today, what we're going to do is we're just going to pull out all the soundtracks and start sorting really. It is pretty sensational how many soundtracks there are. At some point you do get to not so good stuff, admittedly. Some classical, some easy listening, some bits that aren't really sought after. But all in all, it makes up like 3 copies of the Planets. Pulse there. Some compilations. Rambo. with a poster. Does it come with a poster? No, not got a poster. So many obscure soundtracks as well, films that probably just didn't make it through. Loads of horror stuff, which would be great as we begin finding it. Oh, that's cute, isn't it? The childhood classic, Indiana Jones. So as you can see, it's pretty wall-to-wall soundtracks at this point. I mean, I have sorted out 2 massive piles of junk for job lot or free pile. Pretty exciting stuff. So yeah, what I'm going to do, pull every single soundtrack out, make some piles of just soundtrack stuff, and then we're going to fill the walls with all the cool soundtracks. Into another box here. Whoa. I mean, that is original first press on that. Absolutely insanely cool to have in. That will not stick around very long. But then stuff that you just think, I mean, I know the film, can't imagine anyone wanting to complete it with a soundtrack. But you never know what stuff's on soundtracks. That's the great thing. Lovely orchestral music. Or a choice selection of tunes. You just never know. So yeah, we're hitting on a few bits that are less soundtracky, but obviously still in that vein. We saw Roy Budd there, famous for loads of soundtracks. And lots of these, although they're soundtracks and stuff, lots of these have very, very little value or are incredibly hard sells. Incredibly hard sell because they're very, very niche. When you've got a film that, I mean, when you've got a film that you just don't even know or has never been, sort of never made it through, what are the chances of someone coming in to look for that soundtrack? Lots of foreign stuff, lots of French, lots of Italian stuff. The Italian horror stuff is obviously worth quite a lot of money. There's not a huge amount of that though, but a decent selection of it. But this is going to be so much fun to go through. And very good for me because I'm not a soundtrack collector. So all of this will go in the shop rather than me being tempted to stick it in my own collection, which is great. Right, about halfway through now. So what we're doing is labelling everything. Loft collection. It's just pop, rock and soul, pop. All pop and a bit of Booker T basically. And then everything is slowly being organised so we can get some of the stuff out. This was an absolute win that was in there. Beautiful condition, really lovely. I've got a copy of that, so that will be going in the shop. But this I've been searching for years and years and years. A nice copy of that, immaculate. So that's, I'm only pulling 2 albums out of this whole collection. That's one of them. Bob James is the other. Not come across that one yet. So yeah, slowly getting through this whole collection bit by bit. Let's do a bit of sorting, shall we? So yeah, back into, I think, soundtracks now. Keeping all the soundtracks together. Yeah, all soundtracks. So this one might even stay as a box altogether. Bring them out so we can flick through. Yeah, pretty much all these are looking like soundtracks. Real mix of stuff. I think he just went for anything the soundtrack, he pretty much went for it. Call it. Now, one of the most exciting things about getting a collection where there's so many records in the same genre is getting all the walls clear and then sticking up everything that's interesting from that collection on the walls. And here's us. There's a full video of this that will go out on our socials because we managed to do, I think, 4 walls full But here's us putting up the exciting stuff on the wall. Like I say, there are 3 more walls full from this video. Struggling for space. Okay, we're going to start sorting through the last lot of records that came in, the second trip of stuff. As I said, I've already picked out what I thought was really good value stuff. And now we're into the £1, the free bin, and maybe the occasional thing that might need pricing, but I'm pretty certain I've not left anything of big value at all. Let's go through it then. I'll whiz you down here a little bit. It is so insanely hot. So stuff like Donna Summer, Diana Ross, Barry Manilow. These would probably go out for like 3 odd quid. Barry Manilow, sorry mate, you're going in the free box. Perry Como, sorry, you're in the free box, mate. More Perry Como, more Perry Como. Let the good times roll. Let me whiz this up a little bit, might be a bit easier. Chris Rea, early Chris Rea album, that can definitely go in the individually priced stuff. ABBA always flies out. Sound Waves, a compilation of tunes from orchestral soundtracky stuff. Quid. That can go in the individually priced cheaper compilation. Quid. 3. Country and Western's greatest hits. 3. Midnight Cowboy. That looks quite interesting-ish, possibly. Put it in the check pile. Again, best to check. Now Herbie Mann, I actually I dig it, man. I enjoy quite a lot of Herbie Mann. I mean, his back catalogue is absolutely massive, and some of it is terrible. But have a little look if you ever come across some for some of the funkier covers on here. This one has got Obla Dee, Obla Da, no, Mellow Yellow Donovan, and Whiter Shade of Pale. So it's going to be pretty chill flute music. No. But there are some absolute bangers from Herbie Mann. Now, a lot of people saw the picture of the Loft, or the little video, Loft, I gave a little teaser on social media, and were like, all of that's going to be wrecked, all of that's going to be warped, it'll be useless. And 99% of it is absolutely pristine, absolutely fine. So I was wondering who put them in the Loft. And apparently the guy who collected it put them in the Loft to hide them from his wife. I love that. She said no more records, so he started putting them up in the Loft. So he'd actually put them against sort of like the struts of the roof. And each end was bookended with box sets. So it meant that they were just really nicely packed in. So the heat will only do stuff to records if there's weight on them, or if they're leaning, which would cause weight to be on the records. If they're just perfectly, you know, in a line, all sat upright, I think they're going to be all right to pretty extreme heats. Don't forget, people collect records in very, very hot places. Brazil and Africa and, you know, Greece, and everywhere that is on the equator that's really hot, people collect records. They can't just melt in hot weather. However, if not stored correctly, you will get some problems. So there was one small pile like this that was stored like that was stacked up. And what has happened there is the weight of the centerpiece, the weight of where the label is on, which is a little bit heavier than the rest of the record, has put weight on the records, and it's sort of sunk in, and each of those records is a little tiny bit warped. Now we've got a flattening machine, so actually those shouldn't be a problem for the flattening machine. And actually there might just be the sleeve, so put them under a box or so and they might be fine. So yeah, absolutely spot on storage in the Loft. The worst that you can have in a Loft is a cardboard box, because the back of the cardboard box bends And all of the records near the back of the cardboard box bend too, and that wrecks the back end of the records. And because he was taking it, putting it straight up in the loft, most of this has never been played. It's absolutely beautiful condition. I haven't come across anything that isn't in excellent to near mint. It's phenomenal, phenomenal. So that is the one saving grace of this collection, is yes, some of the great valuable soundtracks, but also the condition. So even the cheap stuff, which that's a staple of our quid box, it's in such beautiful condition, kind of feels like it should be £2 instead. But it's not, because we've got millions of records to work through. So it's still going to go in the quid box. So I'm kind of getting towards the end of sorting the sort of dregs of the collection, as it were. And we're just doing sort of £1 and free, and then anything that we might put in to actually be valued and actually be priced. The £1 stuff is going to be really decent value because we just need to clear some bit of space now. That's pretty cool. Again, there is going to be a box of check because you never know. £1, or there's going to be a box of probably maybe worth £2 or £3 rather than the £1. So let's put those there. Right. Move quickly. £1, £1. Oh no, free. Country. Not even Jim Reeves. Somebody else singing Jim Reeves. So free. Free. Sorry, Tom T. Hall. There's so much of him in here. I've never heard of him before. Obviously, just a American country thing. And then we're also grabbing soundtracks as well, because this collection is mainly soundtracks. So if we come across any soundtracks, they will go in to their own pile over here. Grease, to be honest, it can £1 rather than soundtracks. Okay, so a soundtrack, but very, very countrified. That's going to go in the free. We've got so much. Oh, The Air That I Breathe is on here. Phil Everly from the Everly Brothers. Someone will get that for £1. £1. To be honest, 80s pop. That'll be £2. Okay. Soundtrack still. So a nice James Bond collection. Again, that's only like £3 or £4, but it'll go in the soundtracks. This looks cool. Anything horror soundtrack is going to work for us. So that's going to go in our soundtrack box. Tom T. Hall again. Free. Ah, cool. Okay. Let's see if we can have a little run of... No, thanks, Rupert. You ruined our run of stuff that was going to go in the more than £1 box. Sorry, Rupert, but you're going to go in the free bin. Yep, free. Paul McCartney and Wings can go for a bit more. Seekers, free. Mud, yeah, you can have a couple of £1. Who's this geezer? A Bobby Bloom. Now there's a bit of smoke on there. He's a good looking lad, isn't he? We'll check him. Vangelis. Yep, he can go in there a little bit more. It is just me saying the same words over and over, so I'm sorry if it's a bit boring for you going through this lot. Like I said, we're at the end of the day and I am absolutely exhausted from being in that loft and ferrying all these records around. As you can see, we're getting quite a cool little free box together. How we doing, diggers? Well, this is a strange one, isn't it? A quite dramatic change in scenery because of my idiocy. I forgot to press record on the last little bit of the video where I summarise kind of what's been going on and say goodbye. So you joined me on my holidays in France. Wow, how beautiful, look at this. Absolutely stunning. Literally, we're in the middle of nowhere, the Dordogne region. It's absolutely beautiful. A chateau in the background there, beautiful lake. Anyway, back to records. So yeah, absolutely great fun going through that collection, and being entrusted to, you know, take hold of a collection of somebody's like life work. You know, this guy put some serious effort into collecting. Obviously enjoyed the collecting part more so than the listening part, because most of them were unplayed. So it's lovely to go through that history and see all of that, and, you know, track a timeline of his collection. I love all of that. It's great. Then we get to the business side of it, which is monetary value. And the offer that we put in, remember we put in a cursory offer. Now we did match that, we went a little bit higher than that. And still, it would have been lovely to have gone even higher than that. But with the sheer amount of stuff that just wasn't very saleable, that's going to be really hard. Like all of that country. And I know that, you know, yes, there is a market for it, but it's such a slow market and niche market that we've just done those as job lots. So already 600, probably more like 700 of the country records went as a job lot. 40 quid, bam, gone. Not our problem anymore. And yeah, we probably could have made more in the long haul, but we haven't got the time, space to do that sort of thing. So we're concentrating on the soundtracks. The reason why I wanted to get this video done and dusted is because this Saturday, 25th July, we will put out all the soundtracks at 10 AM to give everyone the opportunity to have a look at them. So there's no holds on them, no pre-sales or anything. They will just all go out at 10 AM. And those events are crucial to our business, because it means that when you've got a specialist genre like the soundtracks, it does mean that it draws those collectors in and you see them all in one place, and we hopefully sell more because there's an event. So it's worked well before. We did a new order one and we did a big jazz one, and those have really worked. So fingers crossed it works for that. I mean, we've got to clear a decent wedge of those soundtracks to get close to making our investment back. So we will see how it goes. The other good bit is that there are plenty of standard things like, I don't know, Phil Collins, Kate Bush, a few bits of Pink Floyd, lots of like lower value stuff like Carpenters and Simon and Garfunkel and stuff like that, but all in absolutely immaculate condition. So that's quite nice, because they will fill up our cheap bins or stuff like that for some time, which is really, but that's a really nice thing to have records in such excellent condition. So yeah, so stay tuned. Thank you again for all the comments and stuff, really appreciate them, and all the likes, subscribes, all that bajazzle. It'd be great if you can give us more ideas about what you'd like content on. I'm more than happy to fulfill those. I have filmed the first part of looking into my own collection, which I know that a few people asked for, so that will come up soon once I'm back from here. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, really appreciate it, and I'll see you when I get back. I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my holiday. See you soon, guys, bye.